I don't remember that. I'm worried.
We're going to give everybody a few more minutes just in case there's a few stragglers that are still cut out there on the 610 loop. But basically, this is the Houston Linux Users Group. We've been doing this for about 23 years now. I've been running it for about a decade and a half. We support the Linux community here in Houston. We're one of rub elbows with people who really like Linux. We pretty much really like Linux. If you don't care that much about Linux but are here for Python, you're more than welcome to enjoy Python on whatever operating system that you decide to install your tooling on. If you run into a problem, probably the answers will come a little bit faster if that's a Linux-based operating system, but we'll still help you out either way.
From your neighbors.
So the group exists for 4 reasons, and one of the primary reasons is education. And a lot of people, they don't really know what to ask about when they're talking about, like, how do I learn Linux? Because you're not really learning a thing. You're learning everything that you can do with your computer in a completely different operating system. And so Linux has got a large range of tools and languages and environments, and Python has had a huge amount of demand. So this is the reason why we've started with these Python classes, so that way we can meet the demand of the community and perhaps even introduce Linux to a few new people. Last time we did this, it was with, was it Eloquent? No, we did Eloquent JavaScript, and then what did we do afterwards, Evan?
Think Python.
Think Python, yeah. So we did Eloquent JavaScript and Think Python, and now we're going to be doing Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Evan Carroll. Evan Carroll is our class instruction coordinator, and he's going to lead this class. So, everybody, if you could, Evan Carroll for Think Python. Not so close.
All right, so I wanted to go over some quick slides here about the group and also the class, and give a little bit of an introduction on what we're getting ourselves into. So the first thing that I would definitely hit on is that this class will assume no background knowledge about programming. So if you're new, you're from a parallel industry, you're from data science, you're from English, it doesn't matter. There's going to be no assumption about what you know going into the material. So the upside of that is it's a great way to get into computer programming. The downside of that is if you have any precursory knowledge of computer programming, the first, I would say, 2 or 3 classes may seem a little bit slow to you. That's just the downside of making that assumption. So the Houston Linux Users Group, we are, to the best of my knowledge, the oldest tech group in Houston. It's been around since 1995. I myself have been going to the group since right around 2001, sophomore year, freshman year in high school. We are not Linux specific. It's our #1 question. I think Ed went over that a little bit. You don't have to have Linux on your computer. If you want to get Linux on your computer, you want to know the upsides of that, it's a great conversation. We're happy to have that conversation, but no one should be scared away from that. If you look around, you'll find, actually, looking around, that's not true. We have more non-MacBooks in this class than we've ever had before. Normally, I would tell you, if you look around, you'll find the vast majority of people are using MacBooks, and there's nothing wrong with that. This time, if you look around, the vast majority of people aren't using MacBooks, and there's still nothing wrong with that. The group itself, what I want, everyone always says, what do you want to get out of it? What the videos on YouTube, we got live streaming happening now. Robert's got live streaming going on. What we want to get out of it is we want to build a community here in Houston. So that's what we use these classes for. So come out and socialize. When we're not running a class, if you have any tech problems at all, you can come out to the workshops and get assistance with it. So that's really what we're doing, and this is like an outreach and a service we provide to the community. It's not what our main goal is. As Ed said, this is the 3rd free class. So what are we going to be doing? We're aiming here to do 10 classes. So we're aiming to have 2 chapters in each class. We have met. Welcome. We have met, and we will always meet on Wednesday. Class starts at 6 p.m.-ish, right? There's an ish there, because coming out at 6 p.m. sharp is totally okay and acceptable. if you are in work or you are in traffic and you're going to be 15 minutes late, still come. It's not a problem. It's very casual. I'm wearing flip-flops. Class ends before 9. This is C-panel. We have to have a C-panel employee here to shut this thing down. I am not a C-panel employee, so we are out of here at 9. What do we do after 9? We don't stop. We go somewhere else after 9. Previously, we went to Cedar Creek, then we went to Taco Cabana, then now we're going to a pho place. So if you are down for pho, or pho, if you know how to pronounce it correctly, which I do, but I fail at, we go to a place called Simply Pho, and, you know, grab yourself pho. Ed?
I believe it's actually called the Flying Fuck.
That's right. That is a correction. I sometimes go to a place called Simply Pho. It's on a different side of town. The place we are going to is better than the place I normally go to. It's called Flying Pho. That is, thank you for that. And by the way, that brings me to something else that we always get questions about, which is how do we operate a class? That is exactly the right way to operate a class, right? If you have any questions at all, you raise your hand, you stop me, and then we can have a discourse and a discussion. You don't have to keep raising your hand because that's awkward. But that's a great way to, like, you know, transition there. And you're free and welcome to do it anytime. Don't wait till the end. Okay, so on all of the events for this class, I told everyone if they don't have Python installed on their computer and an ID up and running, come beforehand and we'll happy to help you out. We'll get that all set up for you. Of course, that never happens, right? You tell people before class, come for preparation, and we had 5 people show up or something like that. Certainly not everyone here has an IDE and has Python installed. If you don't, we will help out. We'll make that happen. We will not make it happen during class. So catch us after class or come to Flying Club and we'll help you out there with your laptop. If you don't have it set up, and you're not in an environment, you don't have all that stuff worked out, I will tell you this, or if you want to use someone else's computer, your computer, the dog eats or whatever, there's codepad.co, right? This is really cool. We're going to go over this in class a little bit. I'm going to show you it because it's what they call a web IDE. And a web IDE allows you to write code without actually installing all of the stuff that you would otherwise need to do to write code. Web IDE is a specific thing. It's exclusively popular in some places. And it's a great way to really quick demonstrate something, you know. Or if you're not on your computer and you want to show a friend, you know, this is what we can do. You can pop open to one of them. They have a really, really strong use case. Okay, now today, what are we going to be covering? We have 2 chapters today. 2 chapters and a sliver, because I'm going to cover chapter 0 too. There's something I wanted to point out. So the 2 chapters are Python Basics and Flow Control. Those are the names of the chapters. I really think it's just Python Basics, but that's what we have here in the index. So we're going to go over them. We're going to look at all of the material in the class, at least when we may change it. For future classes, I intend to solicit more and more external material outside. For this class, I spent about 2 hours trying to find material outside, and to be honest with you, the material is just, it's a little basic, and there's not enough people covering it. I do want to cover one thing though. I think external material is very important. I will emphasize that, but I think it's better than what the book offers. And I think the help and the documentation that Python offers is extremely important. So this is one of the things that I can really like. This is industry expertise and practice. I'm going to drill into people's heads how you get help from Python itself, not on the web, not on the book, how you can actually use the Python tools. And if you've taken either one of the other 2 classes I did, you know how to do it in JavaScript and in Python. It's definitely something we hit on all the time. Okay, so the first thing I want to hit on is external material, right? This class, we're using this free book. The reason we looked at, when we look at the curriculum, really the number one thing that is the first filter is the book free? The book's not free. I can't have a big class with a bunch of new friends that do it because everyone says it's a $30 book. It filters out a lot of people. It's an introductory class. This book is totally free. You can go online and you can read it. The last book we did is totally free. You can go online and you can read it. Really quick, let's just take a look at the name of this book. So, you know, we kind of have an idea we're all on the same page. The first book we did was called Think Python. The second book that we're going to be doing now is called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. Does anyone want to tell me what they feel about these names? What does it read into? Automate the boring stuff. What does that mean? What are we getting ourselves into? Anyone ever automate anything boring?
Spreadsheet,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, so Automate the Boring Stuff is a very, very practical book. What we're gonna be doing in this class is giving you actual job skills you can use wherever you're working. This is not gonna be a thorough dive into Python. It's not gonna be a computer science course. We're gonna go over the stuff we need to know, but just keep in mind that the aim of this book is to do precisely what Dan said. Right, we're gonna cover some spreadsheet stuff, we're gonna cover some web stuff, we're going to cover some real practical things, and one thing you will not be asking when you get out of this class is, what can I do with Python? Right? That's what this book is all about. This is just showing you what you can do with Python. Okay, so I wanted to cover external things we can reach out to outside of this curriculum too. MIT has on OpenCourseWare, they call it 6.3001. That is an insane numbering system, but that's how they do it. And this is an introduction to computer science with Python, right? So we're covering the practical stuff, Python-y. You want to learn the actual computer science stuff? You want to get more into that side of it? Look at this MIT, 6.3001 thing, right? This is very popular, these types of courses now. They do a reasonably good job curating them. I myself am playing around with the Harvard course, and I'm thinking about helping out Houston and throwing a study group on that too. Check it out. I've never done this one, but this is out there. It's pretty popular, and I believe they actually, for like $200, give you a certificate when you take it. So you can actually say you have a certificate from MIT, right? Yes.
One thing actually, this book, when I looked up on Udemy, they actually, I guess the guy that wrote this book has a Udemy course you can buy for $10 if you would like to see this author go over his own book.
That is a very, very good point too. That's also a very valid point.
And I think he also has a free YouTube. I think it's all on YouTube as well.
Oh, okay.
Is it? His name is Al.
Al Schweiger?
Yeah,
Or something like that.
I think it's all on YouTube.
And let's also make note of that, and I'll say it here again, because we want to promote the author for giving us this awesome book. The author himself sells a Udemy course which goes through the book and teaches you Python. If you want to have the author's instructions rather than mine,
Or, no, have
I
both.
don't know why you want that. Or both.
Both.
Or both. You really, 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 really love this book, and you want to do it twice, once with me and once with the author. Then the Udemy course is definitely a way to go, and I think it's a totally affordable option. Udemy, edX, Coursera, all of these guys are out there. They're all doing the same type of thing. They're providing you curriculums. And yes, this one actually has a curriculum by the author. Check it out. We appreciate him providing us the book, so I don't have to write that. And yes, it's, are you doing that course just out of curiosity?
I went ahead and I just saw it this afternoon and I went ahead and signed. I'm mostly to support the guy.
What was the cost? If you don't
$10.
mind? There you go, $10. So that's like what, 2 beers, a beer and a half, whatever. Coffee maybe, a latte, one, maybe half of one at Starbucks. Yeah, check it out.
By the way, does pho have beer?
Yes, that's another point.
Okay, well, just,
If you do like alcohol, that's the last question we take on the phone place. If you do like alcohol, it is BYOB. But there's plenty of us that go there and drink coffee, and you won't be that weird if you join me in that. Okay, so we finished with the slides. That is all of the PowerPointy stuff you'll have today, so sit back and relax. We are now going to hit this book, and what I wanted to do is Chapter 0. How many people have read Chapter 0? It was in the okay, that's promising, right? More than half. Chapter 0 tells you what you're getting yourself into, right? So, what I like about Chapter 0, and I'm going to tell you this, because this is worth stressing, especially for the other half of the class that haven't read it. Computer programmers have, in some people's mind, a real reputation with being very mathy, right? And I don't know a nicer or worse way to say that. I just would say mathy. And that means that these are people that understand math and they enjoy math and they do math all the time. But a lot of computer programming isn't math. It's like business concern, right? And it's important to make a note of that because for those of you that haven't taken calculus, like me, it's totally fine. You can be a successful computer programmer, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what this book goes over right here. This is the one takeaway that I really have in this Chapter 0. He hits the nail on the head. Programmers don't need to know that much math, right? When you're building a website, you're not going to need to know that much math. When you're making an input form, it's useful in some areas, but it's not useful in all areas. Come on in. So this book will be less mathy than the last two books that we did, and I'm a huge fan of that. Okay, so one of the options that we have here is the author provides, on top of the Udemy course, YouTube videos, right? I think we should watch some of those YouTube videos, at least hit it off and see how it works. We're gonna play with the format of this class too. And I'm gonna take this YouTube video and we're gonna speed it up just slightly, but we're gonna hit it. It's 10 minutes long, and I'm gonna see if we can do it here. Let's use a
Boy, now I have 50%.
little slower. We'll see how it works out. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's too fast.
Course notes is correct on start idle with the automatic limit. Idle has two parts, the interactive shell, and if you click on file,
So-
new file,
We're going to talk, he doesn't quite give this a very big introduction to this video. There are different ways to evaluate code, right? How many people here have run idle? Played with it at all? Okay, so idle is what we call a REPL. Let's go ahead and hit that, let's talk about idle. What he means here when he's jumping into idle is that when we run this idle, it comes up like this. This is what they call it. This is what it is. It's like a graphical, semi-graphical interface, right, into Python. And it pops up open a window, and it gives you the ability to type Python code and then immediately get an output back. So I'm going to show you this. You run idle, you can say something like 5 plus 5, right, and it immediately tells you what the return of that is, which is 10. And here's the thing about idle, and I think I found this out the last time too. You actually can't make it bigger. Super annoying.
Make the text bigger. Well, I can.
We'll figure idle. Maybe you can now. Hold on. Yes, there we go. Okay.
What's the GCC?
The GCC, where did you see
You
that?
got 8.2 on
Second
there. I
line.
got
Okay.
6.3 on my lap.
That's just saying what version it was compiled with. So when you want to make your own Python, you use a compiler, a C compiler, and that's just referring to that.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, essentially. But the takeaway from this is that idle provides you the ability to write Python code and test it. So if you're getting down into your tasks and you want to say, is this valid Python? How do I do this? You can use idle to figure those types of things out. I'll give you a great example. Python has, he talks about this in the first chapter, and we're going to hit on this. It has two different types of integers. It has an integer and it has a float, right? So if you take this and we say something like 10 divided by 3, right? What you're going to get back is 3.3333, so on and so forth. That's the number. Python has another thing where you can do 10 divided 3, right? This double divide sign. And then you just get back 3, truncates it down. Treats both of those things like whole numbers, and it has to produce a whole number. It drops the remainder. Those are all different ways of saying the same thing. When you're starting off, you're going to forget things like this. It's the only reason why I'm talking about it. Forgetting is normal. Unforgetting, idle is very good at that. Unforgetting is playing, jumping into idle and trying it out and seeing, oh, that's right. The single one, it gives me the numbers after it. The fractional part, the double division thingy, that drops it. When you forget which one's which, here's your solution.
By the way, that forces it, that, so if you said like x equals 10//3, the x type would be an integer then.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Okay. But the takeaway here isn't the math part. The takeaway is the forgetting part. This is the solution for forgetting. It's a quick way, we'll get into the math. Just hold on. Okay.
the file editor will appear. The interactive shell runs like
Here's another takeaway from this, right? He has in his file editor. Anyone know what that file editor is?
Idle?
Notepad?
Notepad.
Oh, it is?
Right? So the author of this book is actually writing code with Notepad. I don't advise doing that, but I would say this: the point is that you can do that. Doesn't matter how good you are, if you don't want to be pretentious at all, yes, you can just write this stuff in Notepad. He's actually writing all of his code in Windows Notepad. something I've almost never seen. I think it's really awesome.
Last question, one at a time, shows you the results immediately. A scraper just experimenting and seeing what instructions do. The file editor lets you enter Python code to new programs. There are other editor apps for taking Python programs. I use one called Sublime Text, and there's another one called Python. But this course will use idle because it comes with Python, and there's no additional setup to do, and because it's the same across Mac, Windows, and Linux.
Okay, that's all true. I will be using PyCharm, right?
Right, okay.
And I'll tell you why I'm going to use PyCharm. We're going to get into that a little bit more. The downsides to idle. But I do suggest people get an editor. If you came here earlier, we set you up with PyCharm. That's my go-to for teaching Python because it is the simplest thing to use. Come on in. It's very, very, very simple to use PyCharm. Okay,
Shell file editor windows will be really simple, so it's easy.
we're going to skip forward a little bit here. Here we go to the expressions.
Take 2 plus 2, and then press enter. In Python, 2 plus 2 is called an expression. The most basic kind of programming expression.
Can everyone hear this? Are we having difficulty hearing this? 'Cause
Not good.
not good. Okay. Not good means I'm going to stop doing it entirely. And we'll solve the not good part for the next class. Here are the authors going into expressions, right? And we're going to go back to the material then, and I'll show you some of that. When we hit this chapter up, chapter 1, the author is literally just showing you this, right? And we can do it too. We don't have to have the author's YouTube video to do it. He shows you right here 2 plus 2, and then the result is 4. Now you can do this in any which way. You can do it with idle if that's the way you want to give it a shot. We'll come over here, we'll show you our idle. We'll do the exact thing that the author's doing in his video. 2 plus 2, we get back 4, right? That 2 plus 2 thing, there's got to be a name for it. In English, we don't usually have a name for it. It's just something we do. Computer programmers have a name for it. It's called an expression, right? An expression is something that you can evaluate to get a result. And you can have multiple of these things that you have to do, and they give you back a statement, right? So an expression you can kind of think of for right now as just part of a statement, or a statement in and of itself, right? We're going to go over that a little bit more. The book is going to be a little bit
Can you
sloppier.
do gives you a statement that is the result of evaluating an expression is a statement?
The result of evaluating an expression is a statement.
You said it gives you a statement. You said that
It can be part of a statement, right? That's
the
what I
expression,
meant.
the expression is a subset
Of a statement.
of a statement.
That's right.
But this gets pretty confusing for the beginners. Can you say something about statements in the same general way?
So a statement, if you want to think of it like this, a statement is one instruction to Python, right? Now you can break that up inside and it can do multiple different little things, but you can just think of it as like one thing that Python's going to be doing. It's going to look at your statement and say, I'm going to do that now, right? And if there's a problem, Python's going to come back and say, this statement caused the problem. Ed?
So there's a parallel in the early days of writing computer languages to English. And this parallel is not an exact parallel. But the idea is that a statement would be like a sentence, whereas an expression would be like a clause.
Oh, wow.
A statement would be like a sentence, whereas an expression would be like a clause.
Part of the sentence, yeah.
Yeah. Come on in. Let's see. We got one right here, Jared. We got one over there too.
Oh,
So that's definitely now these types of like metaphors they have mileage on them, right? You can go so far with them and that's perfectly fine. I actually like that one. I don't have any complaints with it. It gets a little bit more complex when you say that an expression can be a statement in and of itself, right? So yes, but that's perfectly fine. So when we get down to it, he shows here that he can just give it 2, right? And Python will evaluate that 2 and return itself, right? So he says here that that 2 could be thought of as an expression that does nothing except return itself. You can take that so far, yes. I will also say this, because I don't want to have to keep saying you can take that so far. This book tells you a lot of things that are wrong and then corrects them very soon after. You're going to stay in the class the whole 10 weeks, so everything's going to get corrected. So I'm just going to stop and dropping those caveats. What could an expression be? Well, with math, an expression could be something exponenting, right? Exponentiation, I suppose, for math people. You could say something like 2 raised to the power of 2. That is an expression, right? You could say 5 plus 5, an expression. 5 divided by 5, an expression, right? Here's where he has those two things we just used, the integer division and the division, which I use as something that often confuses people, that you're going to want to look up somewhere. We'll get more into that, but you can always test that out with either. Multiplication, subtraction, addition, all of these types of things. We take one integer or one number and we do something to it with another number, that is an expression, right? Python's going to go out and do that. Now, it gets down into the question of, okay, well, this thing that we're doing, what makes this so special, right? What makes the Python operation so special with these addition, subtraction, multiplication? Okay, no matter how bad your math is, how many people in here have heard of PEMDAS? Okay, PEMDAS.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right.
everyone's hand pretty much goes up, right? PEMDAS is whenever you work with math, right, you have to do things in a specific order, right? You can't add before you multiply. You gotta multiply first. You multiply and divide at the same time, then you add and subtract, right? So if we take it, I'm gonna show you an example of that. If I say here, 5 plus 5, I get back 10, right? But if I say 5 plus 5 times 2, what am I gonna get? 15, right? Why do we get 15? Why don't we get 20? Who wants to hit on it? Dan.
Because the multiplication operator is evaluated first.
Precisely. Multiplication is evaluated first. So what does that mean? That means when you have an operator, multiplication, subtraction, division, when you have something like that, Python sees it, the first question Python asks itself is, what is the precedence of this operator? Right? What is the precedence? And that means what comes first? What has a higher priority to Python? And math doesn't all have the same priority. Different operators have different precedences. Now you could have done this, right? 5 plus, in parentheses, 5 times 2, right? You're gonna do the same thing. Because we're saying multiplication comes first, it's implicit in the first, it's explicit in the second. Can everyone in the back see this? So I'm gonna make this bigger? I can probably make it bigger, which means I will. Let's come down here. Okay, we'll do that. Yes. There we go. Okay. The only thing that stinks about that is it's at the bottom of the screen. Let's see if I can help that out too. There we go. Okay. We're gonna have to ignore my Tommy tucks at the very bottom. Okay, can we see that? Everyone in the back see that all right? Okay, so what we have in the first one here is we have no parentheses, and I call that implicit. That means that when you have no parentheses, that operator, that multiplication sign says, hey, Python, do me first, right? Python goes out, it does multiplication first, then it does the addition. That's part of what we call in computer programming operator precedence. Operators have a defined order in which they're evaluated. In the second one, we have parentheses. Those parentheses don't change anything. So it's just being explicit. You're just telling Python, hey, I know you would otherwise do this thing first, but let's be sure you do it first and do parentheses. Now here's actually what's happening. Parentheses to Python have the highest precedence. If you see parentheses in Python, Python's going to do whatever in those parentheses first. It's not going to actually look at, it doesn't care what the plus sign is, or the addition, the multiplication sign.
And the embedded ones first.
What's up?
It's going to do embedded parenthetical statements before it does the ones in which.
That's exactly right. We're going to get to that too, but not right now. It works from the inside out. Okay, so now let's also, when we were talking about this, we're going to look down here, and they're showing you the precedence piece, and they're just going over that very same thing, right? That the multiplication is going to come first. You can override it with parentheses, change it entirely, and that is the only special thing to an operator, right? So if you know that, you know the only gotcha for an operator. An operator takes arguments, just like you'll find functions do later. Those arguments are usually on both sides of the operator, and then what it does is it evaluates them in a specific order, right? And you'll find that those orders are intuitive if you recognize this from math. Okay, so here is an example where we're going over exactly what Peter just mentioned, which is how parentheses get evaluated and how each step of this works. Let's see if I can make that. There we go. Okay, so if we look at this one, we have on the left-hand side 5 minus 1. This gets evaluated, and what happens? It gets reduced to a 4 right away, right? On the right-hand side, we have 7 plus 1 divided by 3 minus 1. How does it take this? The 7 plus 1 gets evaluated next, gets reduced to an 8. Then the 3 minus 1 gets evaluated, gets reduced to a 2. Now we have these outer parentheses here, right? See the outer parentheses? We just did the inner ones. The outer parentheses come next, and 8 divided by 2 happens, and we get a 4. And then this all gets reduced to a 16. That's the takeaway from operators, that that's how they work, right? And you can override them with parentheses. Override the precedence with parentheses. They're talking here about, this is essentially an English analogy. That's a little confusing. We're gonna look here and we're gonna see the syntax errors we talked about before. What is a statement, right? For your purposes, one of the big takeaways for a statement is that when it doesn't work, Python will tell you where that statement is. So when you start to write programs and those programs get big and your statement doesn't make any sense, Python's going to read it and it's going to say, hey, that statement is a problem. Let's go back and look at that. So here's an example of a statement that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense because look at this, plus multiply, right? What should it do there? Does anyone have any idea?
Throw an error.
Throw an error. It's all it can do. It doesn't make any sense, right? Robert?
You should dereference the memory location number 2.
Robert is trolling us.
Thank you, Robert. So the point here is that when you're not a computer programmer, when you're not something like Python, right, which is made to compile Python code, run Python code. If you're not that, you can still have something like an instruction that doesn't make any sense, right? An instruction that doesn't make any sense is something you can't do anything with, right? And the process of not being able to do anything with it, that's what an error is. So Python throws an error when you give it an instruction that doesn't make any sense, because there's no way it's gonna make sense out of that, right? And then here's the error. And all programming languages give something similar. This is their way of telling you that you either screwed up or you're incredibly stupid. It's a syntax error, right? And a syntax error means you've essentially violated some of the core rules of the language. And that can happen all the time. You know, you could create an English sentence that has no verbs, and you'd be like, what does that mean? You know, banana, bicycles, clouds. Okay. You can do the same thing in computer programming language, right? So you'll get that. Now, for the next part, we dive right into this thing called data types. Does anyone here have an idea what a data type is? Call on someone new. Anyone in the back corner know what a data type is? No one?
Like strings, integers.
There we go, you got it. That's exactly right. Strings, integers. So tell me, what is a string?
String is a set of characters.
That's perfectly fine. That's exactly what a string is. What is an integer? Because we haven't officially defined that.
Number.
A number, right? That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. You aced it, man. 100. So you have these two different things, numbers and words or phrases or sentences, right? A string is like text. You could put all of Shakespeare in a string, right? There's a certain thing you could do with that. It makes sense to think about it like text. If you have numbers, though, you can do a different set of things too. It makes sense to say 5 plus 5. It doesn't make all that much sense to say 5 plus Shakespeare, right? So the fact that we have different types of things and we reason about that differently, in English, it has to become very apparent to a computer programmer. You have to have, well, you should have anyway, and we're not going to focus on other languages. You should have different types, and Python does. Liz?
To clarify, integers are only dealing with numbers, but could a string be a string of numbers, or is it only
Good question, right? And we're going to go over that. But what I want to draw first is the distinction between the two, right? We'll get there in a minute. So the point here is that when we look at sentences and we look at numbers, we expect to do different things with them. The computer expects to do different things with them. It stores them differently and it uses them in different places, right? So now we're introducing this new mechanism in which we can reason about them. We call that data types, right? So when we look at some of these data types, and now we're going to hit on what Liz had to say, we have, for integers, we have all of these great things. What's your name in the back?
Chris.
Chris, all these great things Chris pointed out, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of those are integers, right? You can add 5 to them, subtract 3 to them, divide them, whatever. Those are things you would do with numbers. Count with them, right? You wonder how many people are in the room? Well, we start off with Lewis being 1, and we add 1 for each different person. That's something you could do with the integers. Wouldn't make too much sense to do that with the strings. Here's examples of strings down here. One character is a string, A, right? Chris said one characters, it's a series of characters. That's a word we use. A in this context is a character, right? That's what we would call a character. So we have one character string, we have a 2-character string, we have a 3-character string, right? And then we have hello, which is an actual word. That's perfectly fine. That is a string too. Now we have this other one, 11 cats, and this sits on exactly what Liz was saying. Can we have a string with numbers in it? Yes. Can we have a string with just numbers? Yes. Right? The point is that a string with numbers is going to function differently than a number itself. Right? Think about it like this. If we had 11 cats, and I put 11 on one sheet of paper, and I put cats on another sheet of paper, and I said, I want to tell you I have 11 cats, what would you do? Take the 2 pieces of paper, and you put them together. Right? Say, okay, now I have 11 cats. It says 11 cats on the paper. That's a thing you can do with the string called concatenation, right? We're going to get to it later. But the point is, you can take 2 different strings and add them together, glue them together, right? It means something totally different. So yes, you can have strings with numbers in them, right? Okay. Does anyone have any questions on any of this stuff?
What about typing, dynamic and static? Do we have to care?
We are definitely not going to get into that right now. There are just some questions I think that would really put us off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that some of these things deal with more than one language, like when you talk about different typing systems. Every language will have its own typing system. We're only covering one language.
Right. The last book got into a lot more about the differences, so we had those conversations. In this book, I want to teach you how to get to browsing your web with Python, pulling down pages, scraping them, editing spreadsheets, and comparative analysis between different programming languages takes us way into left field. But those are the conversations that we like to have occasionally at Flying Club. So if you're interested in that and you really want to get into it, by all means, let's have those conversations. Okay, or at the end of the class, we'll have plenty of time. So Python programs can also have text values called strings, and he tells you here, strs. By the way, I don't know if anyone in the Python community that ever calls them that, but yes, I guess we always call them strings. I will always call them strings. You can surround them a string with a single quote character, as in hello or goodbye cool world. So Python knows where the string begins or ends, and you can have even a string with no characters in it. So we talked about having strings with numbers in it. You can have strings with spaces in it. Here's something else to think about. A space is just like any other character, right? You often forget about that because when we say the ABCs, we don't ever say new line, space, any of those types of things, right? We don't say symbols like period or comma or ampersand or parentheses. None of those are in our ABCs. But for computers, they are very much in a computer's ABC. And the computer's ABC is called a character, right? So the character set includes all of those types of things. And it also includes digits. So we have another syntax error that they're showing off here. We went over this. Let's go back here. We said we do 6 plus times 2, you get this, invalid syntax. Well, we could also get invalid syntax if we do something like A equals, well, let's not do that. Let's just try this. There we go. Right, there's another error that we can get. So it's introducing you to another type of error you can get. Strings, numbers, the computer understands. It understands them, because you separate numbers by something, right? If I say 5, 5, we know that this thing in between the 5s tells you that the 1 5 is different from the other 5, right? But strings they don't work that way. Strings, you have to give a character to separate them. So that character is a quote. We can use a single quote. You can say here, hello class, like that, right? Or we can use a double quote. Hello class. But if I don't add the quote at the end and I just say hello, like this, it gives me an error, right? And it gives me an error because in order for that to make sense to the computer, it has to have an area to stop. It has to be able to say, this is the end of the string, now I can do something with it. So,
Evan,
yes,
suppose you type your string and you have a single quote in the beginning and a double quote at the end. Would that also prompt a
the
syntax
same
error?
error. It won't make a difference. And why won't it make a difference? Here's why it won't make a difference, Marcel. We have this, right? Let me show you this. Here's a string here. If I do this, hello. I hope I spelled your name right.
Nope.
How do I spell it?
It's 2 L's.
You may get 3 next time. So here, we have this right here, right? We have the single quote, and then we have the double quotes like that, right? This would actually be a valid string. Look at that. Hello, Marcel. And I got Marcel in double quotes, right? But if I do this, hello, Marcel, it's going to be like, wait, you never ended that single quote. The double quote has nothing to do with it. It's part of that character set. The only thing that can end it is that same type of quote used to start it, right? And the reason is because you can have either quote on the inside. You want to have a string with a single quote, use double quotes to start it. Hello, Marcel. Now I got double quotes inside of the string. You see them right here? The single quotes are inside, the double quotes are on the outside. The compiler cares about the double quotes. The single quotes are just like any other character. If I flip it, the same thing happens, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Do we kind of get it? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you go back to the
Yeah, let's do it.
so in the second one from the last, you didn't put a before that. Yeah,
Right.
there. So you didn't put a if you would just put a double quote at the end of Marcel, it would still give the error, right?
That's exactly right. That's
I think that's
exactly
what you
right.
tried to say. Explain that you didn't put the double quote, right?
It didn't actually matter. The point was simply that I didn't have a single quote. That's exactly right. Your understanding of that behavior is right. So what Numine just said is if you have a string, right? Even if I had, let's look over here, right? Can everyone see this line that I have highlighted? If I put a double quote at the end of Marcel's name, nothing changes. I get the same error, right? And you get the same error precisely because it's not a single quote. That's what the compiler wants. You can give it anything it doesn't want, and it's going to still want the same thing. It's going to want to know where to stop. Cool? Okay. Oh. All right. So, we're going to come down here. Okay, so we just talked about this piece of paper example, right? We talked about how we could do some things with strings. We can add them together, 5 plus 5. Well, we can do a similar thing. Well, no, I'm sorry. I said that backwards. We talked about how we could add integers together, like 5 plus 5, get back 10. Right? But I also gave you this metaphor, or this example, where we have 2 words on 2 different pieces of paper, right? And if you want to get those, to bring those together, right? Python uses the same symbol for that. And you can kind of think of it in the same way. And that's an important thing to take away from this, right? When I tell you in Python, we're going to keep rocking with this idle editor. It's working pretty well for us. But we will use PyCharm when things get more complex. When I tell Python 5 plus 5, it knows what to do. I can say add 5 to 5, and it knows what to do, right? But if I want to say add, let's say, oranges to apples, right? Apples plus oranges. If I want to say add oranges to apples, that kind of sort of makes sense too, right? I mean, you may know what that means. It means add them together like this, right? Now, there's a name for this kind of add. There's a very techie computer name.
Concatenation.
Concatenation, that's right. That's exactly right. Concatenation. You don't have to know that name, but the point is if you squinted it the right way, it kind of makes sense to use plus for that, right? So Python, when it decides whether it's going to do math or whether it's going to do this, concatenation, what it's looking at is the data type that's on both sides of that. So the data type up here is an integer, and it knows to add them, like arithmetic. The data type here is a string, and it knows that if you give two strings to an addition operator, right, or what is really a concatenation operator, it knows to concatenate them. So the point is that the type of this makes a huge difference when you provide it to the operators, right? Okay. So what we're going to do here is, look at this. This is the next example. This is the takeaway from it. In Python, if you try to add two things that don't make sense. So I showed how you could take a string apples and a string oranges and concatenate them together with the addition sign. And I showed how you could take a 5 and a 5 and add them together and do arithmetic. What happens if you try to add a 5 and an apple or 5 and orange?
Error.
Error. Python goes, what? You can add the string 5, but you can't add a 5 to an apple, right? It doesn't, Python says these are two different types. I don't have an operator for two different types. This is a problem. You need to fix your code. So this is exactly the error you're going to get right here. Type error. Can't convert int object to string implicitly, right? And we don't pronounce that string. String. When I say string, that's what I mean. That's what Python means. So here we have this. Alice is a string. This is an integer, and Python is telling you it wants to convert the integer to a string.
Why not the string to an integer? He would work.
It would work. The reason for that is simple. Evaluation left to right. Addition.
Ah, okay.
So addition looks the first data type, and it decides what it's going to do. So it's saying it can't make the 42 a string. There's a problem. Let's go back to our idle. Let's take a look at it, and then I'm going to show you the solution to it. Okay, so if we say here apples plus 5, we get, there's our type error. Must be string, not integer. Right? Actually, interestingly enough, we get a different type error with the same version of Python. Alice plus 42. Apples plus, that's interesting. That shocks me. We still get an error, but the error is different, right? I don't actually know the reason why. So here's what we should see though. If you want to fix that, what you have to do is you have to tell Python that the 5 is a string. Like this. Python provides a little function called string, and that says, hey, this number inside of it, this should be the string.
I get yet another error over here.
That's interesting too.
Why didn't that work? Maybe you have to write out string.
Let's see here. I'm not sure. Control 5.
So the space is inside the
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't work the first time. What am I doing? Anyone see what I'm doing wrong here or different? It
Yeah.
worked the second time. It did not work the first time.
So the problem is you pasted the traceback most recent call last at the end of that command.
That wasn't actually giving me an error. I accidentally pasted it, is what he said, which is quite possible. I get it. One of the things that I struggle with is copying and pasting and putting on my shirt the right way. So yes, it's one of my many skills here. Yeah, so the point is that this worked exactly like I had said, and I was right even if I couldn't copy and paste. Yes?
What's the difference between putting str5 versus putting 5 in parentheses as a string?
Because if you put 5 in parentheses as a string, it doesn't change the type, right? So that should not work. So if I take this and I say apples
Well,
plus
actually,
5, like this,
No, like, I mean, not parentheses, quotes.
she's saying if you just use a 5 string, it'll obviously work.
okay. So that's a great point. It'll work fine, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes functions will produce numbers. You're going to learn all about this later. They produce numbers, right? And sometimes you're doing something with a number, right? And when you're doing something with a number, when you have something producing a number, you've got to tell Python to change the way it's treated. Change that. Let me give you a case in point. You could do this. You are exactly right. You could say 5, this is 5, it's Jessica? Aha. You could do something like this, apples plus 5. That's going to work fine. But here's what you can't do. You can't do apples plus 5 plus 5, right? Why? Because if I do this, what am I going to get? Give it a shot. What do you think I'm going to get?
I don't know, I would say it could be apples 5, but I feel I'm wrong.
That's exactly right. That's what you would get. So what if you want to get apples 10? You got like what?
Put it in parentheses, make it
Okay.
a higher order.
So let's see here. If I put it in parentheses, right? Hold on.
Double, both of them.
Both of them like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Who here thinks that this is what? Who here wants to take a guess at what this is going to do?
No tens, this is just gonna be
You
concatenation.
need more marks, right?
Apple's 55.
We have a lot of different people, so I'm going to call on Mumine first. Mumine, what do you think it's going to do?
Now it might give an error, but if you put marks at the outside of the parentheses.
When you say marks at the outside of the
I mean-
parentheses, what do you mean? Quotes.
Yeah, quotes.
So you want quotes
No,
where?
yeah.
Here?
Mm-hmm.
Like this?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if we do that, right? Let's take a look at this. And I know. Here's the thing. The video guys, who I love, by the way, they have told me not to walk around, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'm going to break rules. And then I'm going to break the pizza. Okay. Let's look at this here, right? If we do this, we have apples and we have this, which is a string. By the way, it's green for a reason. It's green because it's telling you the way Python sees it. So it's actually giving you a hint. It's showing you here that this first parentheses is green, meaning it's a string. You're going to get apples plus an open parentheses. Then we have a 5, but you're not telling it what to do with that 5, right? So right there we have a string and a number right next to each other. There's nothing in between them. That's going to be a showstopper for Python. You've blown its mind. You can't handle that. Anyone else want to give it a shot? Let's hear any of the ladies in the back.
What is it you're trying to do again?
We're trying to have apples plus and then 10. I want it to say apples space 10.
Just remove the quotes and put the 10.
Hold on, wait, one sec. Say one more time.
You can remove the quotes from the 5, keep the clause, and then do string around that.
You were sitting in the back and you had all this Python experience and you were going to tell me nothing? Nailed it. Boom. Okay, so what do we do differently? You want to explain it? What are we doing here? We have on the inside, you got this. You got it. What are these two things?
They're integers.
And what are we doing? We're doing what to the integer?
Just adding.
We're just adding, right? We have an expression, we just want to add these integers. Now, if we didn't have string, what would happen?
We'll have an error.
We'd have an error. Why would we have an error? Because you can't add
Character to an integer.
you can't add a character to an integer. So Brainiac in the back came up with this guy here, and what does this
So
do?
what if we transfer?
And how does it transform it? That's exactly right. It takes whatever's inside the parentheses, those two 5s that are getting added together, they become a 10, and then it says, I need to have that 10 as a string. That's exactly right. So, if you want to ace this class, she already knows everything.
Could you put the parentheses in quotes?
Could we do
Instead
what?
of the STR, could you put the parenthetical statement in quotes?
Okay, so the question is, could we do something like this?
Oh, STR apples plus
If we had this, apples space plus, and then we had STR.
No,
is this-
No, just quotes
Okay,
around the
5 plus 5
parenthetical.
like this?
But,
STR
parentheses quote 5 plus 5.
With the parentheses inside?
yes,
Inside, okay, like this?
And
No,
Like that?
no.
Then it's just a
Okay.
string.
The
way you used to use it.
Okay, no, this is how we figure this out. And by the way, this is what the REPL is good for, because we're figuring all this stuff out. Now, in the back, what was your name?
Kenya,
Kenya?
like parentheses.
Kenya. Okay, Kenya, what's gonna happen if we do this?
I'll say apples, parentheses, 5 plus 5.
Because this whole thing on the inside is a what? That's exactly right. So when it all turns green, it's Python telling you it's just a string to me. So to you that makes sense. But the Python, this is just like apples. It's no different. It's just anything else. Let's add it, and then we're breaking for lunch. That's it. Apples 5 plus 5. That's what we expected. Okay, we have pizzas here. Probably not enough for everyone, but enough to fight over. So on a count of 3, everyone take out whatever weapons you have in your hand, and we're gonna dash to the pizza in an unruly fashion. And whoever gets the pineapple pizza, I feel bad for you because it's horrible.
What if you never press enter?
I'm going to address one of your questions. Let me read the class. If you want to get up in an orderly fashion and eat the civilized pizza, which has no pineapple, by all means go for it. They don't care about
You and I don't like the pineapple. It's a
Sunshine and light and sweet.
There are no people that like the pineapple. It's an unfortunate truth that it does get consumed in this class.
It is.
So, just to be totally contrary, I don't like pepperoni.
I rest my case. QED.
I was listening to it on the drive.
Did you really? I stand corrected. Then that makes it. That actually makes it. My concern was no one was going to do it. If one person did.
I'm a little broken up.
How are you doing? You can always come late. Okay, so if you have time, actually, let's stick to
Sorry, I think that's the part I was missing.
no problem. What we can do here is we can go down here and we can say, run. No, let's
He's doing YouTube. We're gonna do this.
The main issue
We're gonna go new.
with just this
Oh yeah.
is the mic audio.
It did not.